Welcome back to One Winning Pod, where we're back. The bye week is over, and we had opportunity to sit back, reflect on the Ravens, who are 9-3, and kind of think about what they could get better at as they go ahead later this week and play the Rams at home, which is a big game because the Rams, as we know, just defeated the Cleveland Browns to help us out in the division, but also kind of proving that they're a little bit of a force too after their bye week. First, let's talk about our bye week, and I think starting off at the top, one of the biggest units in transition, maybe even in the NFL, is the Ravens' passing offense with Mark Andrews not in it. The bona fide number one target for Lamar Jackson since he's been an NFL quarterback is not going to be available until a hopeful Super Bowl run, maybe, and the team has to transition. And it was not the best first performance without him, but we also have seen this offense without him before and think that it has opportunity to grow. But guys, what are you thinking about this offense? What are you hoping they figured out over the bye week?
Yeah, for me, it's the same I've been saying since last week, the week before, when we knew Andrews was down. Who is the guy now? I think that you have a lot of talented guys who can go out there. Obviously, Zay has been incredible his rookie year. The other Zay, likely, we know that he can do things. He's not the same player that Andrews is, but he has a high ceiling if he's able to put it all together. Odell, is he going to stay healthy? I mean, you got all these players, and there's more I can ramble off, but I'm just not convinced yet that they have a guy who, when the game is on the line and you need that key third down, fourth down to keep it going, we always knew that Mark Andrews, had a very high probability of making that play. We knew Lamar was comfortable throwing it to him. And I think that's going to be something to watch a lot in these next 5 weeks, which is going to be tough because the AFC is crowded, and I don't think the Ravens can say that their spot in the postseason is fully secure at this point. But before the playoffs, I think they're going to need to figure out who that guy is, and maybe we'll get that answer as quickly as this coming game against the Rams.
Yeah, I mean, I think the wild card is definitely Bateman. Zay, we know, is going to get involved. He's going to get his touches. A lot of it, I think, is just going to be scheming around, trying to get him open. We saw a little bit of that too with that last touchdown he had, where they ended up calling a run play his way, and he just made a couple guys miss and took off, scored a touchdown at the end of the game. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think Zay, I think he could be in that position, but he just, I guess maybe doesn't have the rapport, the rapport that maybe like an Andrews did with Lamar yet. And also, I mean, concerns about, size and just, those matchups when, you need to get, 5-6 yards. Can you beat your guy off the line and be able to get that little separation to be able to make that tight contested catch? We'll see. Could be Zay. But the good news is, Odell, I've liked, him getting involved. And, for a couple of weeks, I think we were a little bit concerned just with, hey, we were trying to get him involved and it really wasn't clicking. He's trending up right now, so he could definitely be one of those guys to make those plays, as long as his streak keeps going. But yeah, Bateman really feels like the wild card to me because, I mean, he's made a couple of really fantastic catches in terms of like body adjustment and making those plays in traffic when he's got all these guys around him. Where if it goes off his hands, it's an interception waiting to happen. So, I think he could do it, but the big question mark with Bateman is just like, is he, is Lamar going to see him really? Is he going to go his way? And, we're hope that they have a lot of practice over, the bye and, able to work on that a little bit. And, those guys getting together and just being like, hey, like throw me the ball, just throw it up. Like, give me a shot. No, let me come down with it.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm like unsure if any practice sessions happened away from the team facilities because we know that Harbs gave him a week off, but like this passing offense, might have needed that a time to rep it. So I'm wondering, if they got any reps together or at least talked. Who knows?
I mean, that'd play some COD or something.
Some team building activities.
Right? Yeah,
trust
exactly. I mean, whatever they want to do.
Yeah, but I will say, I think you bring up a good point. Bateman, X factor here, but I also think what was interesting from the presser is Harbaugh said today they were like self-scouting and looking at what they've done throughout the year, what they want to get back to, what's been working for them, what's not working, and what maybe served them well but isn't what they want going forward. And I think that's an interesting statement because maybe there are going to be some aspects of the offense which they think maybe without Mark Andrews, for instance, they need to get rid of or move forward from. So I'm definitely eager to see this offense coming off the bye against a decent opponent of the Rams and see are they going to call as many screen passes? That seemed to be a big piece of the Monken offense, and some mixed results there. I think that it's smart that we run those plays. I think it really makes them have to account for those blades of grass, but I also understand that they don't always work out, and we're in a results-based business here. So I'm eager to see the progression. Maybe the X receiver will be a higher, read for Lamar, and they'll get more touches to Bateman. But I'm definitely super curious about that because we can easily say, going against the Chargers, even though it was a little bit of a longer week, AFC opponent, the travel, they weren't trying to mix things up too much. Now you've had 2 weeks, you're at home. Let's see what they're going to do.
Yeah, definitely. I think you bring up a really good point with the fact that with Andrews going down, we're going to see some changes in some things. For one, I wouldn't be shocked if we see less heavy personnel, right? Because at this point, with Andrews out, it's much more likely that it's going to be a run play, right? In that situation. They haven't shown to this point that they're going to give likely a lot of targets. Kolar is lucky to get a single target in a game. It's we saw against the Bengals when Mark went down, they did spread it around a lot with the wide receivers. They had some more spread concepts in there. That could be, obviously, I think that you look at that unit as a whole, like we said, and there's questions as to whether or not that unit can sustain that long term. But I think with Andrews out, you'd like to go there, particularly I think because with Isaiah Likely taking over Andrews' spot, the thing about Likely I think we're seeing is that he's not really a prototypical tight end, right? I mean, hasn't been terribly consistent going over the middle in his career yet to date. He's very athletic. I think he's good out in space. He can take a screen and do things with it. We saw that against the Chargers. But I mean, yeah, the loss of Andrews and not really having a guy who projects super well in that same role, you're going to have to change up some things. Unless, I guess the only other option there is to just get Kolar way up to further speed than he is, because I think he does have a similar skill set to Andrews. His skill set's much closer to Andrews than Likely's is, but hasn't really shown at this point that he can do that with any consistency at the NFL level. Had some good plays during the preseason, sure, but as far as the NFL level, we just haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, another thing they're going to have to get figured out too. I think it's a great point of just not having Andrews or, not knowing who's going to kind of be that guy making plays over the middle of the field. Where else do you attack the other parts of the field, right? Right now, we know the Monken offense at the screen game is a big part of their offense. So, they could certainly test the shallow flats a bunch and then just kind of see, test and see if guys will be able to rally up and make a tackle. But another area we've been calling for improvement, the deep passing game, particularly on the sidelines. They really haven't had a whole lot of connections on those deep passing balls. So, that's another area that you can try to attack the field that they're really not taking too much advantage of today. And it's not because of opportunity; it's just they haven't been able to make things work. So, and obviously, it's not just it's not just Lamar, it's not just the receivers. It's a big part of this, pass protection of the offensive line, which I guess we can maybe talk about, but. That's going to be another one where they're going to have to figure things out. The big question mark we talked about last week was just the health of Ronnie Stanley. And if he's going to be able to get healthy and be able to look a little bit closer to, some of his, peak games this season, because what we saw against the Chargers and, the game before that, just what was not up to, Ronnie's, standard. And, obviously he's not the only piece of the offensive line that we're concerned about, but, certainly I think it's a huge part being that left tackle spot of, you're always going to have, some of the best rushers going on against that side. So if Lamar is going to be able to hit any of these things, these deep outs, you're going to be able to have time to do that.
Oh, so true. And it's interesting because Mark Andrews basically always runs routes. So if he was out there, you weren't really expecting him to block in line. But now it's not so much a given that these tight ends are going to, go run a route. They might actually stay back and block. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how they adapt to this tackle problem. Hopefully they did have time to heal up. Him and Moses are both playing with injury. And if they're playing better, that'll be great. But if not, frankly, I'm all about protecting Lamar. And if I have to lose a passing option, so be it. So I think they need to hold somebody back to help protect and, until proven otherwise. So that's going to be a scheme change. Not necessarily a full-on scheme change. It's not like they never did that before, but it's going to be, I think, a point of emphasis. So again, another thing I'm very curious about come Sunday.
And I think leading right into that, another interesting thing to see is going to be, do we see any expansion of Keaton Mitchell's role? Obviously, the past few games, we were all expecting him to have a chance to be a spark in this offense, but I think his contribution has been a lot more than anyone was expecting. I mean, from every game that he's been in since the Seattle one, he's made plays, multiple at that. But when you're talking about pass protection, I mean, Gus Edwards and Justice Hill are clearly ahead of him right now as far as that. So is that going to keep him off the field a little more? Is there, with it being more spread and less heavy, less blockers when he goes out there, I think he's shown a better ability to break tackles than we were expecting. And I think an improvement from the preseason as well, but he's still, needs more blocking than those other two guys do to really spring a big one. So I think that's another thing that's going to be interesting. We now know that Keaton Mitchell is a guy who can produce at the NFL level. He is definitely a weapon in this offense, but I think the question still remains just how big is his role? How big can it be? Because when you got a guy with that playmaking ability, and like you said, you're honestly, outside of Lamar Jackson, you're down your two biggest playmakers that you were hoping to have at this point in the season going into it. I mean, Dobbins has been out since halfway through the first game, and now we've lost Andrews. So, having Mitchell come onto the scene, I think is going to be really critical for this offense going forward, even if that role is limited. So it'll be interesting to see if the bye week brings any new wrinkles to what the offense wants to do with Mitchell in these last few games and then going into the postseason.
More snaps for Mitchell? Sign me up. Yes, please. More. He's just completely electric, man. We got to find more ways to do him. But, I mean, the key, and I think for a young player too, is just finding that right workload balance. You don't want to lean on him too much and then, I don't know, risk another hamstring injury, for example, because, we've had a couple of those hold him out. So, but whatever that limit is, you get real close to that. Because he's the weapon X in this offense right now, man. I mean, he's just so good. Everybody's talking about it. Vision is just crazy. Just contact balance, everything. It's just, he is like, I feel like, it's probably not that far off to say he's the most explosive player on this offense right now. And so, you need to give the other guy more touches.
Yeah, tremendous home run abilities. Just, it's so much fun to watch. Get him the ball more. The thing that was interesting is I was watching this long video about the special things the Ravens do with, just the way they run their offense. And I want to see more of those run, pass options when they fake the run going one way, like a sweep. Maybe it's Keen sweeping across the formation. Maybe it's Zay. And then Lamar kind of is running the opposite way. And then there's a slant or a hitch that he can throw the ball to. I think those are really dynamic plays, and we haven't seen many of them. Or if we're seeing them, they're going with the give more often, so you don't get to see the fun of the run pass. So I want to see some run pass, man, because I think that's just so deadly. I think it's going to be so hard to beat. You're just basically keying off a middle linebacker, and they can't win. It's like damn if you do, damn if you don't. So I want to see more of that. I think that's a way that we can just I feel like Need for Speed. It's like the NOS button, you know. It's like if you want to take this offense to the next level, it's like they're holding off. They're like trying to win the race without it because it's a depleting resource maybe, but they're like hit it. That's how you can win some games. So definitely, maybe we don't see it against the Rams, but maybe we see it against the Jags, or maybe we see it against Miami, 49ers, etc. But I think it's a part of the offense that makes us kind of unique and could just be super powerful.
Man, all right. Well, a lot there on the offense, which that makes sense. There has been times this season where the offense has looked lights out, and other times where it looks like it's an offense that doesn't deserve to be helming a playoff team. But like we said, I think there's a lot of potential there, and as long as Lamar Jackson's back there, anything can happen, right? But moving on to the defense, I think we're gonna have a lot less to say here. I think keep doing what they're doing, right? We talked about going into the Chargers game. There was some sloppiness starting to start in that unit, and we saw them shore that up for certain there. That was an excellent performance against the Chargers across the board. So many good things there from the defense. Really, the big thing what they're looking at with the defense, I mean, just what I hope in this off week they were doing is just, like, hey, we had a great year, but where can we get better? Because you look at the next 4 games this team has, I think you could make an argument that each of those 4 games, you're facing offenses that are stronger than any offense that this defense has faced up to date. I mean, the Rams, like we're going to talk about, they struggled at the beginning of the year. They're healthy now. They just put up a great game against the Browns, who are also a very strong defense this year. Possibly, if we're being unbiased here, you could make an argument that the Browns are the best defense in the NFL this year. I don't know if I completely buy that, but you could make the argument. But then, of course, you got the Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence, he's starting to heat up again, just like last year. The 49ers, good gosh, the 49ers, and then Tyreek Hill and the Dolphins. This is going to be a big test for this defense. I think they're up for it, but it is certainly... It's not comparable. I don't think it's comparable to any stretch that they've had to date of this season of what they're going to have to face the next 4 weeks.
I feel like the big one for me, how they're going to have to survive this, is I hate to go back to the offense here, but like complementary football is definitely going to have to be there. I think the offense is going to have to do what they can, lean on Mitchell and Gus on the run game and really like help balance out and hopefully win the time of possession. Like that's got to be the first one. If the Ravens offense is just behind and the defense is playing most of the snaps, I think that's going to cascade really quickly. I think the last couple of games before the bye, we kind of noted that the defensive line looked a little gassed, just wasn't playing. At least for one of those games in there, just wasn't playing to the same standard, I guess, or same intensity as we kind of
Browns
seen.
game. I want to say
I got a little bit better against the Chargers. Yeah. I think it was the Browns one, yeah. And I think it got a little bit better, especially at the Chargers game because you had that long Thursday to Sunday night rest. But still, I mean, going against, like you said, all those high-powered offenses of, one game you fill out of snaps. That affects your next game and the next game, and it's just going to get worse and worse. And honestly, it's one of those schedules too. It seems like get worse the further along you go. It's like the Jags are a good team, but the 49ers right now are a really, really good team. And, Miami at that point, might be the best of them all. I don't know. But snap management, load management is going to be a big one. I'd say we're going to get reinforcements. I don't really know. Bowser at this point, I don't think is going to be a part of this team in this year, but certainly I think, they've done a good job in rotating guys and, getting people the snaps that they need and being effective in that. So I'm confident McDonald will do that. But yeah, overall, just managing the number of snaps as a whole is going to be huge.
That's awesome. Yeah, snap management is super important. I'm glad you brought it up because one thing I said is I wanted just to see a continuation of the physicality. There was a little bit of a down in physicality leading into the Thursday night game, and then we saw it kind of pick up again Thursday night. They came out like gangbusters, and then they looked even better against the Chargers. So I think I want to continue to see that rest stack up, but this is awesome. I feel like this is like the final test and validation stage for the defense. Kind of go back to what Peter was saying. Like I do agree that this is going to be the next level of offenses. Remember, I said a couple weeks back I was looking forward to the Burrow matchup, and unfortunately, we didn't get too much of it because I was like, he's the only guy that might actually dare this defense. Because some of these quarterbacks, I just think, don't have the cojones to like, try to deliver the ball where it needs to go, and they're scared to go against, the cover 2 shell that they're seeing, and they're trying to be conservative and play basically right into our hands. Well, I think these top flight quarterbacks, Stafford's seen it all. Lawrence and his big neck, he can see anything. Can see the holes. Brock Purdy, slant master McGee. He might do something too with those crazy weapons, and then of course you've got Tua, who I don't think he has the arm strength, which we've discussed, but those weapons are insane. So
you don't need it. You just need to get those guys in stride, and that's it. That offense.
I know. So I'm so super stoked to see how we can handle them all. I hope they're all at full power. I hope they give us their best, and I hope to see us overcome. It's going to be awesome. I do anticipate the defense will have trouble in one of these games. I'm not saying that necessarily we lose, but we're going to see a game, at least one, right? If they crush these teams and they make them look meager, then greatest defense of all time potentially. But most likely they're going to be a little worse for the wear, have some battle wounds, but that's something that they can learn from, because again, you just don't want to get stunned in the playoffs, because you can only lose 0 times. You can't lose. I'd rather get stunned in a game early, like let's say on Christmas, we don't get our present under the tree, and Purdy throws for 400 yards and scores 6 consecutive touchdown drives, or something ridiculous like they just did against the Eagles. Well, figure it out. That's an opportunity to figure it out, and that didn't happen in the playoffs. You can recover. It's the lowest priority win, frankly, of the set. If you told me I had to lose San Francisco to beat Jacksonville and Miami, I'd take it, because those really matter in AFC seeding, and NFC doesn't. So, I want to win all 3. I'm greedy, but hey, that's a huge opportunity to learn from potentially. So, definitely want to see how this defense is able to bounce back too in those moments.
All right. Well, I guess with that, we will move into talking about this first matchup after the bye week, unless there is any other topic that anyone's dying to delve into.
There's literally something on the sheet.
I know, but see, here's the thing, man. Here's the thing. Last month I rewatched for the first time in ages The Great Pumpkin with Charlie Brown and Linus, and what Linus has a line in there that's pretty iconic. I think a lot of people know it. And he said, there's 3 things he's learned to not talk to anyone about through the years: religion, politics, and Justin Tucker missed field goal kicks. So if you guys want to start that conversation, you feel free. You feel free. But I'm taking my lesson from Master Linus over here.
I won't talk about it unless Chris wants to talk about it.
Just go for 4th down more often. That's it. Just
never kick.
You don't. I mean, we don't have to talk about it. Just talk about the other thing. That if you talk about that, the other thing goes away.
Well, it's tough because it's just I don't really know how you break it down. I don't know. I mean, it's happened more than we've liked this year. You could make the argument none of it's Tucker's fault. You could make the argument that he is part of the equation. It's just a really hard thing to break down, in my opinion, unless you are someone who knows the ins and outs of kicking. I mean, there's
Here's why I don't think it's a talking point. We need a field goal, 55 yards. You gonna take it? Damn right we are.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yep.
it. Even though we maybe have less confidence going into those kicks than we did before, I don't know how much decision making it really does change. Maybe if it's 4th and 1, it's a 55-yard field goal, you do go for it instead. Maybe. I could see that. But it's not necessarily that big of a change, because he's still great, and it's just one of those things. I thought it was interesting that he said he didn't take a breath. It was rushed. The operation wasn't on there. And I think one of the biggest things they can learn, and it kind of goes back to maybe something we didn't talk too much about in the Chargers game, is you can't take the timeouts with you. Consider taking a challenge. Consider calling a timeout in abundance of caution. empower Tucker to take a timeout. Be like, hey, this is not working out for me. Like I didn't get a chance to breathe or whatever the hell, he said he didn't get to do. Call the timeout so he can reset, because that's important. We can't take him with us. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Something we're talking about, just using those opportunities and making sure you call challenges if necessary and use timeouts.
What I will say is this. I think that regardless of whatever's going on with the field goal operation, blocking, snap, Tucker's foot, the holder, whatever, Tucker has been in this league for as long as he has been, has done whatever he's done. I don't care if he doesn't make another field goal the rest of the regular season. I say that I do care, because probably if he doesn't make another field goal the rest of the season, we probably don't make the playoffs. But my point being, like, if he goes on a negative streak, I still think in the playoffs, he'll have ice in his veins. Anytime he goes out there, he's fully capable. He is more capable of making a kick than anyone else in the league. So, if he's in a bad streak, I have no doubt in my mind he can figure it out and just be absolutely dominant when we need him to be.
Sure do hope so. So yeah, look at the Rams. They're 6-6. They beat the Browns. They defeated Joe Flacco. They even got a safety on Joe Flacco. Kind of cool. And they're a team that's just been playing well since their bye. They got the Cardinals. Most teams beat the Cardinals except for the pretender Steelers. And then you got they were able to beat the Browns. And they've also had a really good draft. So this team that was on a super hangover post Super Bowl and lost a bunch of talent is starting to figure things out again. Great coaching staff. And I think that's it's an exciting team that I'm sure the Rams faithful are excited to see that their team's becoming relevant faster than they maybe assumed after trading away the farm.
The Rams faithful, all 20 of them, right?
That's right. All 20 of them.
Yeah, it's cool. I know this is one of the games I'm going to this year, and originally, honestly, I elected to go to this game simply because I looked at my schedule and I was just like, all right, this is a game where I am 99% sure like I'm going to have nothing on my calendar that day. Opponent, I didn't really care about. But, we see what the LA IKEA have done the past couple weeks. They're starting to put it together. And look, the first game against Arizona, okay, fine. Arizona's terrible. That is impressive, but sure, whatever. But yeah, against Cleveland's good. Cleveland, that defense is legitimate. They put up a lot of points there. They had a lot of success. Flacco certainly made mistakes, but he didn't play awful. And the offense put up a little bit of a push. They were still able to come away with a win in that game. So we'll see what they do on the road on the East Coast, particularly, late in the year. That's a spot that I think that teams have trouble with who are coming from there. I say think because I didn't really have a chance to go into the actual numbers behind it, but I could certainly think of several instances where, just against the Ravens, we've seen teams from warm climates who are having a good year come into Baltimore and just not be able to do anything. But yeah, this is a matchup the Ravens are going to have to take very seriously. Again, like 3 weeks ago, this looked like a cakewalk matchup. It is not anymore. I think that the Rams are hitting their stride at the right time, and this is going to be a tight contest.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I feel like there's some familiar faces, but definitely, as you guys are saying, a lot of young draft picks on this team. I think Puka Nacua is definitely the one that everyone has on their mind. I mean, he's just been having an incredible season at the receiver spot. But I mean, the Rams are also a team. I mean, they've had plenty of other names, supporting guys in there. So I mean, it's hard to call him a supporting guy, but I mean, he has been a little bit injured, so he hasn't been as much of a focus. But Cooper Kupp, also very good. You think that he's close to being putting some stuff together and being a force like he was a couple of years ago. And, even at some other spots as well, running back at tight end, like they've got some good players at those positions. So it feels like one of those teams. I don't know. It almost feels like one of those teams like a Detroit, I guess, at this point, where you're just like not a whole lot of star guys, at least on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, Kupp is arguable again because of maybe his injuries, at least recently. But it feels like a roster like that where it's just, a lot of guys just playing really good ball right now. And yeah, I mean, for the defense, I think there's a lot to a lot to be concerned about. Just playing man and not letting guys get behind them. Continuing to just play well as a secondary. Continue to put pressure on Stafford, and try to come out and try to come out and rattle him a little bit. I am looking forward though to just being at home. I think it'll be a great matchup. Looking forward to the crowd getting back into it again, like we did against the Bengals.
Yeah, I think it's interesting looking at this matchup. If we go to the offensive side, you got Puka Nacua, like you mentioned, Chris. This guy is dealing with an AC strain, which if you never heard of it before, is some sort of shoulder strain, which makes sense because he was like grabbing his chest area and then he came back and started playing. I was surprised. I thought he was done. I thought he broke a rib. I thought he tore a pec. I thought he had a real serious injury, and he's able to come back and play, and then is expected to gut through it a bit in this game, but he might be limited. And then Kupp's been having some issues, as was noted. Tutu Atwell, Shorty, finally decided to come and play this year a little bit, so he could be an interesting component. Very, very fast player. And then Demarcus Robinson, never forget that guy from last year who was on our team. He actually had some good catches in the game against the Browns. So you're looking at those pass catchers, not too shabby. They still have Tyler Higbee there, although he has a questionable designation. And then the running backs, fascinating room. I love that this got pulled out of the notes, but Kyren Williams is, their running back. And that's significant because he was the guy we talked about, the Ravens potentially going after back in that draft last year.
He was on our short list.
5th round pick. Yeah, 5th round pick. So I thought it's funny that came up. I'll never forget. I was talking to Jason from Huddled Up Films, and he was talking about Kyren Williams, and he was like, dude, this guy's electric. He's so good. I don't know, why are people not talking about him more? And then he watched some more film, and he was like, dude, he can't pass block for anything. He's the worst pass blocker I've ever seen. And then other people were like, he's the greatest pass blocker I've ever seen. And then I was like, what is he? And then he had an awful combine, and just the worst, one of the worst combines. And I was like, ooh, interesting. And then the Rams picked him up, and I literally said in a chat, oh, he had a bad combine, and the Rams took him. That's a good sign for him. And I drafted him in Dynasty. I was like, that is their formula. That's how they got Cooper Kupp. They love finding the people who perform poorly at the Underwear Olympics, but actually have good, stats on the gridiron. So interesting to see that he kind of came from total irrelevance to a week 1 surprise that has completely continued throughout the year, coming back from an injury that was on IR, but he looked all the part in his first game back.
Certainly helped playing the Cardinals. But yeah, I mean, look, Kyren Williams, it's crazy. At the beginning of the season, there were some people who were, there was certainly some chatter going around that, looking at Cam Akers' stats from the end of last season and how, he was pretty high in the efficiency rankings in December for the Rams, and there was talk that he'd be back in the saddle and be doing big things for the Rams this year. And we saw that train got derailed basically immediately, very shortly after the kickoff of the season. And Williams has just come in, and he's just performed better than anyone outside of some people who are following the Rams expected. I mean, even them, I'm sure he was a bit of a surprise. Again, the games against Arizona, look, he combined for just over 300 yards on the ground, average 8.4 yards per carry, 3 total touchdowns in those games, including 61 yards through the air. Just absolutely dominant. But the rest of the games after that, he's been good, but those games have definitely been outliers. His yards per carry is average, just a tad over 4. Scores touchdowns. Scores touchdowns. He's had 7 touchdowns outside the Rams games. Yardage wise is, he's getting between 50 to 100 all-purpose yards. So very solid. I just, the Cardinals, the 2 Cardinals games made it seem like he might be a superstar in the making, but, might want to pull the brakes on that talk a little bit before he does it against, a real defense. But at the same time, though, certainly not a guy who can be overlooked. Because, even though that was against a poor defense that he put those performances against, still NFL caliber. So he's proven he can do it at this level. The question is really just, how consistently.
Well, he has a good offensive line. He's behind. I think that's a positive thing. And most running backs perform well with a good offensive line, and they got boosted in the draft. Steve Avila was a pick that they had, and he's already instantly contributing. And that's we talked about it in the preview. We want to see how our offensive line responds to a bye week of rest, and hopefully they play better. This is, it's the train that gets everything going on offense.
Yeah, definitely. And this is at least from what I saw, from what I was able to watch today, from how they played against the Browns, how they played against the Cardinals. Very solid group. Very solid group. I wouldn't say that they're, something I would call a dominant unit, but you watch them play and, they're making holes for the running backs. They're protecting pockets that are, good enough for Stafford to have enough time to go back and do what he needs to do. The bye week certainly seemed to help them. I didn't get a chance to watch film from before that. I would have liked to, but from what I've seen from them for the most recent output, this is a unit that's going to be pretty solid. And so, Ravens, they've had success against everyone they've played this year. So, they'll give them a fight, but certainly going to be one that, we're talking about the defensive line, getting fatigued in that game against the Browns. It's going to be something that they're going to have to keep an eye on, because it's a unit that, if the Ravens aren't careful, is capable of dictating the trenches. And that's never something, obviously, that you want, because that's a very easy recipe for losing a close game.
I know I'm definitely looking forward to Justin Madubuike, just his performance. Kind of going over to the defensive side of the ball with the Rams. I think, a player he's often compared to, Aaron Donald. And Aaron Donald's going to be there, and I think it would be great for Madubuike to have multiple sacks in front of a guy that he gets, has a lot of respect for. So, I feel like when you talk about the Rams defense, Aaron Donald, he's still there. He's still a beast. Maybe not at the height maybe of his career, maybe a little bit down from that, but he's still really, really good. And a lot of other players as well on that line. But I do think it's their defense is generally a one that is definitely getting a lot of new guys, new talent in. It's not the same defense as it was a couple of years ago when they made it to the Super Bowl. But Donald is probably one of the few guys that's still the anchor of that unit.
Huge test for the interior line. This is the marquee player of the NFL and Hall of Famer. So Linderbaum better have a good game. Hope for the best against, for you and Simpson and Zeitler. They're all going to have to deal with them one way or the other, I'm sure. So definitely interested in what tactics we use offensively to slow down these rushers, because, it's not just him. They got the third round rookie Kobe Turner as well. 5.5 sacks. I believe he was one of the sacks in the 3 sacks to get the safety against Flacco.
Yep. Him and Donald tag teamed.
Yeah. I'll say this, man. When you saw that, Flacco a little bit turtled, but it was also just they decided to pin their ears back, man. And that's a good offensive line in the Cleveland, and they closed out that game. They were like, no chance. You're not getting an opportunity to go down and score and try to be heroic. It was unlikely, but they just completely closed the door. And that's something you love to see out of a defense. Obviously, you hate it against your own team, but that was a huge step up moment for that whole unit.
Yeah, when you're looking at this matchup, the front seven of this Rams team is where the Ravens are really going to have to look to focus. The secondary, which we'll get to, I think the matchup's pretty favorable for the Ravens, but the front seven in particular, the defensive line, they can get after the quarterback. I'm pretty sure, I don't have the number up right with me right now, but I think that unit is on, or the defense as a whole is on to 27 sacks for the year. So, not a bad number. And look, Donald, it's easy to just look at his statistics this year and compare it to previous years and say all right, this guy's, lost a step or two. You look on the film, he's still game wrecking, he's still there. Maybe he has lost a step or two, but If he has, then he's gone from best defensive player in the league to one of the best, right? So he's still someone that you're going to have to keep an eye on and really have some strength there on the offensive line. And you brought up their third round rookie interior line guy, Colby Turner. He's been having a great year. And then we're looking at guys who we've looked at in our draft previews and guys who kind of highlighted as like, hey, that guy looks like he'd be a good fit for the Ravens. Not Kenny Young. Kenny Young is no longer with the Rams. I learned today, but they did draft Byron Young from Tennessee. He's an edge rusher, one of the guys that we had on our list of guys that we would have liked to see the Ravens take a swing at. Obviously, the Ravens went a different direction with Tavius Robinson, but Byron Young, yeah, he's also has 5 sacks on the year, just like Colby. He's been explosive. You turn on the film, he's there. He's forcing fumbles. He has 2 forced fumbles on the year. Very active on the line of scrimmage. They've got him lined up right on the line, and he's been really good in run defense. He's shown some pass rush moves. He's going to be someone that the Ravens are going to have to keep an eye out on. Like you guys have said, the Rams, we're used to this defense being, I think, a little more dominant than they were the past couple of years. Definitely one of the better units in the league. They've lost a lot of those vet guys, as you guys already said. But I still think this is a very solid group. And this youth movement that they're getting with some of these guys, particularly these drafted guys who are coming in and making an impact immediately, they're making this unit is something that could give our beat up offensive line some struggle. When I look at the offensive line, I was mentioning the Rams offensive line. That's a unit that I think could win against our defense if we're not careful. I think our defensive line has the advantage there. But this is the matchup that I am really concerned for us here, is our offensive line against this young defensive line paired with the force that is Donald. Are they among the best in the league? I'm not sure if I'd go there, but they're certainly a unit that I think will be a test for this offensive line of the Ravens.
I think we might need to run right at them.
I think
so. It's a good way to slow down these guys, and hopefully establish something there and be able to kind of slow down the rush. That's, this might be an opportunity as for the flip the switch and do a little bit more Lamar runs too. I hope that we don't have to come to that, but it wouldn't surprise me if that's something in the playbook.
Yeah, I think from my side, I'm curious to see how they're going to balance it. I feel like this has the potential. I feel like this is going to be a good one. It's a post-bye game, which I'm excited about. I think the Ravens tend to do pretty well in those games, kind of explode out, and I don't know. I just think I've got a good feeling. I've got a good feeling about this game. I feel like this could be kind of the offense showing a lot of new things. I think we could be successful in the run game. Kind of lean on that a bit, but I think that this is also a secondary. I think I want to test a little bit, make some plays downfield, kind of stretch it out, and see how we can attack them. I think going into it, the Rams obviously, they have the film from us over the last couple of weeks, and they can look at it what they will. But now they have the extra week with the bye and be able to look at self scout and things like that. I've a good feeling about this one. I think the Ravens are gonna zig where the Rams think they're gonna zag, and I think they could be firing on all cylinders, man.
Chris is having thoughts of Jackson 5 color rush jerseys.
Maybe. I don't know. Could happen. So I don't know. I think I totally agree. Defensive line, Donald definitely scares me. That's the weakest part, I think, is pass protection on the offense, I think by far. And, we talked about it last week too with, Lamar's hesitancy to kind of put on that second gear and be Superman. He just stays in the pocket and he's going to take a sack in those situations, which is fine. But looking at the secondary, I don't know, man. None of these guys scare me too much. You've got Witherspoon. He's a guy who's been around a little bit for the 49ers. He was with the Steelers actually for 2 years before this, coming to the Rams. And, you've got some other guys that the Ravens have seen before, like John Johnson is playing safety for the Rams now. He was over with the Browns. He was another high-profile guy that the Browns ended up signing. Didn't not work out for them at all. They ended up releasing him into a big contract that they had signed him to. And they got a couple other guys as well, Jordan Fuller and Kobe Durant as well, younger guys playing on the secondary. But it's definitely a far cry from when they had guys like Ramsey and Peters and everything in their secondary. So I think there's going to be an opportunity, man. I'm looking forward to it. Got a good feeling about it.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I would say about their secondary to keep an eye out for, this unit, only 6 interceptions on the year. Actually, I think only 5 of those are from the secondary. One of those is a linebacker. But 2 in the past 2 games. Again, you had the Cardinals, and then they played Joe Flacco coming off the couch. And honestly, Flacco on that interception, I think even after the game, Flacco was just like, that was a bad throw on my part. Like he was really frustrated about that throw. But yeah, I mean, I think you just got to look at this secondary unit, and on tape, they play a lot of deep zone. They're not very physical, but like every other unit on this team, in the past few games, everything has been on an upward trajectory for them. So I think it's a matchup that is great opportunity for the Ravens to take some shots with these wide receivers. Keep trying to get the deep ball going with Bateman. Odell should have plenty of room for his slants that he loves. Flowers can do whatever he wants to do. But, I still can't say it's a definite win, because we certainly know that our passing offense can just come out here and do nothing, unfortunately. We thought against the Chargers we were going to see a really big passing attack, and it didn't quite go that way. But hopefully with the bye week, again, West Coast Dome team coming here to play in which is going to be at least the somewhat chilly weather of 2023 December, Maryland. And on paper, looks like a good matchup. We'll see if the Ravens execute.
They have to be better on third down. That's the key. They were like 4 for 13, and that was just absolutely stifling drives and making it very difficult on them. They've got to be better than that. That's it. I think that's and that comes down to the passing game more than maybe the running game.
Absolutely, yeah. It's like we said at the top of the show. Who's gonna develop to be that guy that Lamar is going to be the new Andrews? Just be like, okay, it's third down. I know if no one else can do it, I've got Zay, I've got Odell, I've got who do I got? And we'll see who that ends up being.
We want to go into score predictions and bowl predictions.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
All right, I'll start us off. There's a 43-point over/under. Ravens favored by 7. The X factor is like, I don't know if I'm at this game or not, yo. Unclear. Peter has my ticket. If I go, I'm buying a ticket last minute. So it's like, does that have any influence? No influence. But I'm just like, I don't know, man. What am I hoping for? Do I want it to be an unremarkable game if I can't make it, but we still win? Or I want it to be a total beatdown? I think that they're going to do quite well and slow down Stafford considerably. So I'm thinking we're looking at like, I don't think it's going to be gangbusters from the offense. 27, I think maybe 27 points for the offense, and then I'll give 10 full points to the Rams. So that's what I'm predicting there. They cover comfortably. And then for my bold prediction, I'm going to say, is it like 150 Keen all-purpose yards? Bold enough?
I think so.
Yeah, no, right. That's good.
I think so.
150 Keen all-purpose yards.
If he's ever done that in his career, it was Seattle. Let's look up how many he had there. How much was that? In that game, Keaton Mitchell had 138 yards on the ground and -4 through the air. So, yep, that would be a career high for him. I'd say that's bold.
That definitely feels bold. I feel uncomfortably bold, but hey, that's what we do, right?
Hey, there you go. All right, for myself, yeah, I think it's just really hard for me to to know how seriously or not to take this Rams team. My lean is they're starting to get healthy. Because, I mean, you look at last year, Stafford was never fully right. He came into the year with an injury. And the 7 touchdowns he's had in the past 2 games, that's the most he's had by far between over 2 games in quite some time. And look, the guy's one of the best quarterbacks in the league when he's out there healthy. I have no idea about the health of Kupp, but I mean, Puka's something. Puka's something, and you've got. I think that this is going to be a tough matchup for the offensive line for the Ravens. So I actually think this is going to be a little bit of a lower scoring game than maybe both it would be expected with these 2 offenses out there. I'm going to go 23-17 Ravens, and my bold prediction is going to be we're going to get a double dip of touchdowns from the tight ends. Touchdown for Likely and touchdown for Kolar.
All right. I'm going to go 35-13 Ravens. And yeah, I'm feeling good about the offense. The other thing too, I think the Ravens have matched up well against Stafford historically. Even the matchup that we had, was it last year, 2 years ago?
21, yeah, 2 years ago.
When he was 21. It was a good matchup. I just don't think the offense was quite there. It was kind of, that was in the period that Lamar was hurt, and, the offense is kind of falling apart that season. So that wasn't there, but I think the defense matches up pretty well. I think this defense is just another level than what the Rams have faced. And I feel like they're going to be surprised a little bit. My bold prediction, Roquan is going to get a interception. And finally, you look at it and just, the stat sheet, he's got a ton of tackles, 126 tackles, total tackles this season, which is a lot. But only 1.5 sacks and 1 forced fumble from the last game. So I think I think he's due. I think he's due for another one. So let's get him an interception.
Most certainly. Love that. Well, we love to hear your bold predictions, your score predictions. Do you think that we're going to come out of this bye week humming? Let us know. You can find us on Twitter at OneWinningPod. Leave a comment on YouTube at OneWinningPod. Send us an email, OneWinningPod@gmail.com. And I'm going to hand over the show to the boys. I'll be back eventually. Hopefully very swiftly, but like I can say with full confidence, I'm not going to be around for any shows next week. But I'll send in my bold prediction. I'll make sure to do that. Gotta keep it on the record, right? So appreciate you guys holding down the fort, and we'll be back. And of course, stay with me, guys.
Go Ravens.